Here, please. Whakataka te hau ki te uru.
Whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia ma kina kina kia tā. Kia ma tū ki tā.
Great, thank you. Welcome along, everyone, to our finance performance meeting. So we've got apologies for lateness from councillors Goff and the Mayor, and a partial absence from Melanie Coker, and Celeste Yanni is an apology altogether. Is that yep. So we've got all them. Pauline's happy to move. Andre's happy to second. All in favour? Against? That's carried. We've got the standard declarations there, so just be mindful of those as we go through them. We've got the minutes from the previous meeting. Tyrone looks like he's happy to move them. Mark looks like he's happy to second them. All in favour? Against? That's carried. We've got no public forum or deputation. No petitions, which brings us to Peter Ryan's report. So do you want to come on up, Pete?
Good morning, everyone. This is the second last performance report of the year. It has not moved a great deal from previous months. We've had a slight decline in levels of service, and I'd suggest that's probably where they'll finish for the year. Somewhere between 80 and 85 is about normal, but I think perhaps we may need to look at some processes for next year to stay more on top of corrective actions. In terms of capital project delivery, you'll get detail from the PMO report, but key projects are on track, in fact above average year. Non-key projects a little bit lower and quite static over time. Funding drawdowns, we've met our goal for 2025. 26-27 is marginal, and we're waiting on one last set of data, but they're right on the cusp of whether they'll succeed or not. I'll come back to that later. We're talking about the capital program going forward. Operational budgets are obviously in good health, and burn rate on capital is, in terms of budget, is fine. I just want to distinguish between that and the capital delivery. Those delivery targets are about actual delivery to milestones, whereas the bottom target is about burn rate. So we're giving you both views. So look, not a lot of detail to go into there, except to say that there's a little correlation, I guess, to be drawn between, we've got the budget drawdowns for future capital, at this stage a little marginal, and then I'm looking at the, if I can get it up here on screen, no I can't, the graph for capital in section 5.13. I'd just like to draw your attention to that graph there, which is complex, but I'm just going to stick to a simple part of it. We're in the wrong report there. Just give me a moment, I'll go to my report by your pages. You're almost there. No. This one here. Right. Now the lowest line there that finishes at 470 mil, you don't really need to see the detail here. The bottom line there finishes at 470 mil, and that's our current position. The blue line going forward and climbing is the capital program from the draft LTP. So what I'm saying is there's a marginal position on drawdowns for forward planning at the same time as we have a reasonably steep climb in our capital program going forward. Now, council and staff have spent a lot of time on deliverability of the capital program. I'm not suggesting that that's not deliverable. What I'm saying is we need to, going forward, keep an eye on planning for capital and achievement against that line so that we can go hard and early if it's not working out the way we planned. So again, I'm not suggesting it's not deliverable. That is burn rate of dollars, not milestones, but there is a climb there. So I'm just sort of putting up an early flag on what we need to monitor closely going forward. Does that make sense?
Not. It does, but can you say it again a different way? The
Okay.
So just so I'm really clear, the 721 mil, which is sitting at 23.24, at the top of that line. So the 721 mil.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Ignore the top line because that has Te Kaha in it.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to, because
Yes.
it's sort of it's inflated, isn't it?
That's quite high. It's inflated by Te Kaha.
Yeah.
The blue line, which goes 496, 566, 608, 664,
Yep.
is our capital program going forward.
Yeah.
And you can see that compared to our past history, that is climbing.
So does that going forward, that blue line, from the 496 to the 566 and then up to 608, that will still have Te Kaha in it?
No.
It doesn't.
That line does not have Te Kaha in it. The top one does.
Yeah. So I guess, well, that would be the next thing is, how does that overlay with inflation? So,
Yes, there is a definite inflation component there. The cost of things have gone up. A lot of that, you'll remember from the discussions on deliverability, was factored in, that things are going to go up a lot. So that's not a straight deliverability climb. There are cost issues there. I'm simply suggesting that we do need to plan well in order to meet that line.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So then one other one, and then I'll go around the room. So in terms of the forecast council delivery, are we saying that in 2024, because we haven't projected that out, we're simply aligning that with the blue line? Or is there a PMO view on where that actually is?
I don't think we have future forecast delivery against the new capital program yet because it hasn't even been adopted as the capital program.
No.
They'll have a view on it, and again, the council and staff went through this a lot in building the capital program.
Yeah.
By portfolio. So again, I'm not suggesting it can't be done, and I'm sure PMO would endorse that view. What I'm saying is it's a monitoring issue that we need to plan to make that happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just if the premise of our letter of expectation at the beginning of the LTP was around deliverability, it would be good to get a view on whether that is achievable. If we're saying it is achievable, then that's...
My experience of the briefings was that was discussed extensively in the portfolio view, and Richard will comment on that.
Sorry, I'll just jump in to say that, yes, we believe it is achievable and we are planning well for it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be putting it forward in the LTP.
Okay, so come the end of next year, we think we will have delivered nearly 100 million more.
That's what we're aiming on, and
Right,
that's what we're planning for at the moment. And that's what the whole LTP is based around.
Right, okay.
But just to endorse Peter's comments, that the problem is that we need to focus on it, and that's what we're focusing on now. This year is just about over, and we need to focus on next year.
Cool. Hey, no, it's good to get clarity on that now, because then we know for the next one. So I've got Tim, then Pauline, then Tyrone.
So if we look at where our forecast council delivery stops, there's really only a 30 or less than 30 million gap. So I mean, that in the program, I mean, that can happen, and so that's not the issue. Would be good once we've set the long-term plan, if we can look at the forecast red line, the forecast council delivery versus the council delivery budget, and see if that's starting to spread, because that would be the concern, I think.
Exactly, and that's what we're keeping a close eye on.
So when do you, obviously following the long-term plan and the budgets are set, when do you think we would be getting a vision of that?
We have a vision of that already for next year, because obviously that's what we're working on. So we've got a plan that gets us to that $670 million sort of figure. Is it 670? Off the top of my head? 66.
Yeah, because
number. Yeah. So we've got a plan. We've got the projects. That's what we're doing.
Because we are aware that everything is going up, even the cost of health and safety. We heard with the Three Waters, doing up the pump station, all that kind of thing. That's just one thing. Then you got insurance, so that would be really good to get a hold of.
Thanks, Tim. Pauline?
Yeah, thanks. I was just wondering what inflation rate we're building in going into the future.
Going into the future, off the top of my head, just over 3%, but I'd have to check the finance on that.
3.4.
Yeah, 3.4 is what's on the top of my head going forward. So we've obviously had quite a large amount of particularly construction inflation. We're hoping that an awful lot of that is behind us and built in now to the estimates that we have going forward. So the inflation rate should be dropping off, but it's another pressure on us. So that's
But that's a
good pressure in that. Well, not a good pressure. An unfortunate pressure is that there is a tailwind to this. So just because we spend more money doesn't necessarily mean we deliver
exactly
more
my
things
point.
in the
So
field.
that'll be compounded every year. So over 3 years, it adds. You take that component out of the number,
Yeah,
and the
that's right.
delivery itself is not increasing by that much, but the
Yeah.
cost of it is. Yeah.
Exactly.
And is that enough? I still think it's quite a low inflation rate to be building in because insurance as well, and we don't know what interest rates are doing, do we?
Yep. So you got to balance there with deliverability. Is that we've got to keep the tension on. We've got to ensure that we are getting the value for the money that we want. So we don't want to go on the high end of inflation to cover ourselves just to save a few change requests. We want to keep the pressure on and get the best value for money for
Definitely.
Christchurch.
Good answer. Tyrone.
Thank you, Sam. So if councillors were to take a sceptical view of the deliverability of 24-25, and I will certainly put my hand up, I've always been sceptical, and will continue to be so, and we pushed for a reduced capital delivery in in the next financial year. What is that?
FY25. Yeah.
Or 25. I mean, what would be the flow-through impact in terms of the planning and the negotiations with contractors and all that sort of stuff? I mean, would it be devastatingly bad and be hurtful for relationships and all that sort of stuff?
There's several levels to that question. So obviously you've got contractors, so they're expecting a certain flow on of work, and we're trying to build that up with our planning. But you've also got communities that are expecting facilities and buildings to be built. I mean, within that number of 566, we've got the South Library, we've got Cunningham House within the Botanic Gardens, we've got completing the Court Theatre. I mean, there's all of these projects that are underway right now that are contributing to that delivery. So it's not just some water projects or resealing, it's the entire capital program there that you're looking at. So I would have said that the contractors were the least of the worries in terms of...
If I framed it another way, like if we did reduce that down collectively and decided in the LTP, would that be deliverable, as it were, to reduce that deliverability?
It's very easy to deliver less.
Good answer. Thank you.
That's right.
Victoria, and then we'll move on. We've probably overlapped the capital program
That's
report,
right,
but-
we have,
which,
but
which is
that's
good.
right.
Yeah, that's perfect. So Victoria.
Thank you. You referenced the black line there, the planned delivery budget is including Te Kaha. Is the only difference between the black line and the blue line of the council delivery budget Te Kaha?
Yes.
Thank you. And then on the tail end of Councillor Fields' question there, where's your confidence level that we are actually going to reach our delivery targets?
The confidence level is in the narrowing of that line. So you can see the shaded area that used to be absolutely enormous, and we were a little bit embarrassed to have to keep coming back saying we've just got to carry stuff forward. We've narrowed that right down now. So what we say and what we do have come together. So our confidence is relied on those last two numbers, 496, and we're delivering 470. The year before, 486, and we delivered 452.
Thank you.
I guess the upshot of what I was trying to get to there is we have a very narrow gap between the two lines, and if we stay on it, we can keep that narrow
Yeah. This is chalk and cheese from
where it was.
where it was. Yeah, this is brilliant. Okay, so we have overlapped them, but we'll still go to the capital program report as well.
Yep.
So is there anything else you want to add on this paper?
I do have one last item to follow up from Councillor Johansson, who asked about geospatial mapping of hotspots for complaints. And it's probably of some interest to other councillors as well. Community board advisors now have access to, they've had access to a briefing report for some time but they're also getting a geospatial view of ticket details. So that's data granular down to property level. Now, being property level, it means we can't put it on the website for the public because it reveals details of individuals. But you have access through your community board advisor to that level of dashboard around geospatial mapping of hotspots. So complaints about water leaks and so forth. The advisors can find that stuff for you. There's also 2 dashboards opening up on the 20th of June, I believe, from our IT people, which are at community board and ward level around tickets, complaint tickets. So there's multiple sources here through the board advisors who can show you what's happening in the ward and where the complaints are concentrated. So that's for Councillor Johansson, but it's obviously available to all councillors. There's an access issue in terms of making it available to the whole public because of privacy around individual properties. But for councillors, the service is there. If you need any further details, just get in touch with me and I can follow up.
What I don't quite understand, like, it'll be good to see it at a local community board level, but in terms of doing corrective action where we're failing our targets, understanding what streets, for example, are generating the most complaints, and then what resources are being allocated to address it, that's the gap that I see. Is there a process by which we look at the data to find out the things that people are complaining about the most are getting attention or are getting into a process to be considered for attention? Because we never get, like, as part of this report, we know we're failing and we're told that things will be looked at, but we never really get a clear sense of this particular street, you know, has had X amount of complaints, therefore we've moved it up the priority list to do it in terms of a program budget.
Well, the information I have is that it does number of tickets by street, but also the percentage solved. So you should be able to see what's still outstanding, and maps showing those summaries. So I believe the data is there. I can't say I've seen it myself, but they've assured me that the data exists at that level.
Trying to understand is, how does the data inform our governance decision making or our management decision making about allocating resources to fix problems or hotspots?
I think that's something I need to work with Sarah Newman to understand.
Seeing that information hopefully be quite useful.
Cheers.
Thanks, Peter. We were just discussing, Andre and I, so that's something that'll be accessible to governance managers, not to councillors directly?
No, councillors directly through your community board advisor. So
when you say through them, you
Yes.
mean rather than asking questions of them, they'll just give us the link to actually get the tool?
I'm not sure of the mechanics whether the link will work for you,
Yeah, right.
or whether you need to work with them for them to access the link.
Right, that's the...
It's not a data issue, it's an accessibility issue.
Right, like an
And
internet.
at the moment, the board advisor is the go-to.
Cool. So maybe... okay, I'll talk to them then.
I can see the puzzlement there. My understanding, which is a little loose, is that this exists on internal systems that you don't have access to because of the privacy issues associated with it.
Right.
But the board advisor can obtain the information for you. Like, I want a map of this. I want data points of that. They can obtain it for you.
Right, but we won't actually physically be able to...
No.
Well,
he's said that 3 times now. So.
That's on the property by individual property view, but there are dashboards at community board and ward level coming on the 20th of June. And they may be able to be directly accessed by you. So I need to do a little bit more work there, but that's the preliminary findings.
Sam's benefit, that was for the public, wouldn't be able to access the tool.
I'd switched off after you asked it the first time. So. Okay, so we've got Mark's happy to move this report. I'm happy to see. Oh, yeah, have you got one? I'm keen to move this on, but...
Yeah, cool. So I did put a question in also regarding the... sorry, I'll just find it. Around people feeling engaged with council. So as you know, we're sort of failing in the way people feel that they can have input into our decision-making processes. And one of the things we were told was that processes would be, so I'll just I referenced the page for page 29. It's communications and engagement, percentage of residents who feel they can participate in and contribute to council decision making. We're at 30%. Previous year result, 29% plus 1. We continue to review our processes to look for opportunities for improvement. And now I raised this the last F&P, and I'm raising it again. I would really like to know what improvements we're making specifically to our processes around engaging with our communities, because, you know, like I keep getting a lot of negative feedback in the community over people not feeling involved. And we've just had the sports plan, which had no public consultation.
Point of order.
So
No, everyone stop. It's
I
going to be
just wanted to kind of
Yanni,
understand
stop.
specifically
Stop.
what-
It's going to be a very long day if we don't move the stuff forward.
No
so,
wonder people don't faith in us and keep begging around
Tim, let's
Oh,
not.
I'm-
Yanni,
it's
guys,
the
you can
resident
both
survey,
leave.
Tim.
Yanni,
It's factual information.
Tim.
I'm not feeding into it. I'm trying to understand what we're doing to improve.
Yanni, believe
because
it or
that's
not,
what it says in here.
I'm chairing the meeting, so we are now. This has been moved by Mark, seconded by me. You've had your chance. You've blown it. So we will put that to the vote. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Great. Thank you very much. So we'll move to Russell's. You guys can talk about it outside if it's going to be like that, but yeah, at morning tea. But just stop it now. Yeah. Right. Thank you for your report. Okay. Next up, Russell. Do you want to come up and give us some good news? We're in surplus.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and morning, councillors. Yes, good news. Mind you, I am just the deliverer, so I don't can be quite clear, just in case.
We're not going to take you outside, mate.
Well, thanks very much, councillor. Yeah. Excuse me, you put me off my track. Yeah. So this is a financial report for April. Current surplus of $74 million, which is significantly about $25 million better than budget, and we're forecasting the surplus to be $11 million at year end. So what's driving that? A number of things, and pretty much, Mr. Chair, it's the things that have been consistent throughout the year. So for income being up, subvention receipts, so $7.4 million there. Waste operations, primarily through Burwood, about $5 million there. Rating growth is up, as we signalled. Also, rec and sports centres, increased participation. That's encouraging to see as well. And that's the reason why this month's forecast is a little bit higher than it was for the previous month. And that's offset a bit because of rates, valuation objections, working through those down a bit, and also the Transwaste dividends down. In the expenditure space, staff costs is down on budget by about $7 million. Grant payments, and that's normally, that's primarily due to timing when those payments are going, but they will be made. Professional advice, again, there's some timing issues just around that engagement of consultants where we need. Consenting units and expenditure, so that's down on budget. It's going to be over budget just because of extra resourcing to clear the backlog. In the capital space, and I won't dwell too long on this either, we've had a good discussion. So capital expenditure year to date, we're about $51 million behind budget, year to date. We're forecasting $39 million behind budget at year end, most of which would be come through as a carry forward. So just to, I think, comment I've made previously, so for carry forwards, which is mainly capital, and there'll be some operational ones as well. That's a decision made by council, and that'll come back earlier in the new year when we know that. In the treasury space, all the matrices are on target. Just draw your attention to, and I don't know the page number, sorry, but Treasury section 7 within the report, so 7.6, where we forecast what the interest costs of interest of our borrowings going through are. And just to say that, just with the recent announcement from the Reserve Bank last year, that's sitting in line with our modelling, sitting in line with the Reserve Bank direction. So that's encouraging, and our group treasurer was pleased. So that's it, Mr. Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Russell. It's always a good report, and even better when it's good news. So
Yeah.
keep that coming. So the Mayor's happy to move it. I'm happy to, or Pauline's happy to second it. Are there any questions? No? Cool. All right, we'll put that to the vote. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Yeah. They used all their energy on the last one, so it's fine. Okay, we'll come back now, Richard, to capital program performance. So do you want to run us through that, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely, thanks very much. So, as you can see in the report, we're still on that forecast delivery of about 470 million by the end of the year. This month has been tracking to what we forecast last month, so I can sort of give a verbal update that we are on track. It's been quite good in terms of completing some things. So obviously we've got some highlights there that we've hit the halfway mark with Te Kaha. The Matatiki Hornby Centre is obviously open for business, and the Waitaki Street long-term stock bank is also completed. So we've got a few sort of highlights to keep the good news going on page 44. The other thing that we provide this month, which is different to other months, is the Transport Choices and CRAF quarterly update. And so they can be found on page 79 and 80. If we scroll through to 79, we can see that we are halfway through the Transport Choices budget of 10 million. You can see the projects that have been paused, you can see the projects that have been transferred to the CRAF program, and you can see the ones that are underway and how far through they are there with their budget spend. On page 80, we come to the CRAF program. So the CRAF program, you can see quite clearly in the top right hand corner, has a budget of around about 40 million for the total program. We're about 25% spent already. If we look down at the way that then breaks into different regions, just to work from right to left to be different. In Spraydon, we've had an information session held with the board. In Richmond, we've got the intersection upgrades completed, and we've got the neighbourhood greening under design. For Riccarton, we've got Bradshaw Terrace under construction and underway. In New Brighton, the coastal area, we're about to go to consultation for the Marine Parade. So you can see there's quite a bit of activity right across the board. In the Linwood and Woolston area, it's had its challenges, and we're still doing some reprioritisation with the community board there. They're advocating for for a couple of streets there, one Hulbert to be considered as street renewals rather than paid for through the CRAF program. But through the LTP process, we're making sure that we get what we can get done. The safety and public transport are obviously going very well. You can see the safety priority money, we're 90% spent already. Obviously, if you're interested then in one of those particular areas, then flick through to pages 81 through to 83 or 4, and you can see the actual project breakdown and how it's going. So I think that's probably all I wanted to highlight.
That's great. Thank you for that. You got a question? Yep. So Phil, then Sarah, then...
I've got a question, and it's probably for Lynette, on page 65. The Norwest Arc Cycleway stages 3B and 3C. That's what I call from Island Road to Harewood Road. Is that, am I got that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Have we got enough money left in shovel ready to finish it? To finish that length, or because I understand that we have. Now you came to us the other day and said that because we're going to go down there with the major cycle route, we are now going to have to find an extra 17 million for drainage and maybe coal tar, our old friend. If that wasn't there, is there enough money to finish the cycleway as it was designed, or have we used up most of the shovel ready on previous stages?
Through the chair, can I answer that slightly differently? I did say the other day I was trying to get an update for this meeting, and off the back of the conversation we had yesterday about the investigation works that are going on we've done, we've finished the ground investigation works down there, and we are trying to push that information through as quick as we can
Okay.
to
No,
update the costs.
That's
I
cool.
am anticipating, so we have funding baked into the LTP to do the additional works around drainage, roading related stormwater, that's what it is, and the street renewal work. It is all baked into the LTP. At this stage, it is looking like we have enough, but I will come back with confirmation on or before the next report for F&P, because we will have good information from that ground investigation work.
What I'm mainly saying, if the cycleway itself wasn't going through, we wouldn't have to spend the 17 million on these extra things. If we left it as it is.
Well, that would be the case with any project, Your Worship, but at some stage we would, because the streets are deep dish channel and they have drainage and surface flooding issues.
But was that in the program to do anyway, regardless of the cycleway? That's my question.
I can't answer that today,
No,
sorry. But I'll add all that to the information that comes back.
Thank you. It's got one on the same page, and then we'll go to Sarah because if it's different. So just so I'm clear, the 26.6 million budget, that's the draft. That's in the draft LTP now, right? So if it's forecast at 32,
That hasn't been updated from what we're saying, so that's what I want to update.
Yeah, okay. So that'll be what comes back next month.
That is what's coming back, and that sheet in here will be updated and will be updated costs for the figuring out for the completion of the construction works.
Yeah, no, that's good as gold. Okay, great. Sarah, thanks.
Thanks. For you, Richard, it's looking like you're saying your forecast is spending 99% of budget excluding Te Kaha. My recollection from previous years is that's really, really good. Yeah. It's a big
I think
step up.
pretty pleased with that. So.
Yeah. So is the gap then in the previous report mentioned a potential sort of $37 to $39 million underspend on capital. How does that relate to the 99%, or is that part of Te Kaha not being spent?
I would have to check the numbers just to see, but the forecast is holding at that 470, and I think that 470.
Yeah, I think it's
470 against it's 480.6, which is the core capital budget, and that's 98% expenditure. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But the question, I think, I'm thinking your question is correct, but I'd have to check the numbers.
Yeah. I thought we just need to get an alignment between those two. Yeah. That's all. That's great. But that's a huge step up in delivery, which is really, really good. So.
Yanni, I feel like you'll have a question. Yep.
Sorry. I noticed a number of the craft ones are showing green traffic lights, but if you take the public transport ones, for example, on page 84, you see that a number are all green for project delivery forecast June 2024, and yet they're still in investigate phase. So, yeah, what assurance can we be given that they are actually on time? Because it would seem we don't have a lot of time left, and we haven't spent over half of the budgets, and yet they're still tracking as going to be met.
So those ones, a number of the PT projects are the design and investigation and design, and that's all they're doing. They're not doing the construction work. So it's to build designs in the drawer in order to allow PT Futures work to plough ahead when the new LTP is up and running.
Right, so we're pretty
They're
confident that those ones are all on track. And in terms of specifics around, again, coming to footpath, just on the page 83, the Sprayden area, again, we've got package of footpath resurfacing improvements, execute, investigate 5%, April 24 to June 24. It's been shown as green, but again, that's a very small spend.
Yes.
So again, we're confident that these ones are all going to be met.
They're expected to be done before the end of this financial year, and the teams are out getting on with them.
Thanks. And just a high-level question. We're given the information around the initial forecasts for the CRAF spend in terms of what the government money was that they gave us as being the total. But what we don't have is a total project cost of the approved projects that are being agreed to. Is there any information that we can have that shows, since we've done all the investigation work and the design work, what the total cost of delivering the CRAF projects are? Because nowhere I can find what the total cost is versus the money that we've got on budget.
It's the same thing through the chair.
Sorry.
So we've got a $40 million budget, and we will deliver $40 million worth of work.
No, I understand that. But when I look at like Lyon and Holbert Street, for example, it's still showing me that the cost of the project is 0.3. But actually that project was 6 million. And I get it that the board's reprioritised it, but it would be helpful to actually know what, given that the cost of some of these projects have gone increased, they're not reflected in the finance reporting.
I'm sorry.
Maybe I've got it wrong. Isn't there just a bucket of 40 million and we've reprioritised so the projects in that bucket are in there, and if they're not, they would go through the LTP?
No, a number of projects have received additional subsidies from NZTA to top up the project cost, because the initial project costs were not obviously as specific as when we got into the design and the detailed design and the construction. So what I'm asking for is, what is the total cost of the projects? I know how much money's in the budget. I understand that.
Oh, right. Okay.
But a number of them are exceeding.
So if it's 50 or 60 million all up type thing.
Yeah. What's the total cost of
I think what Yanni's saying is, if the CRAF money is an income, is there additional NZTA money that's coming in as well? And can we see the total cost of the project if that is the case? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but it would be useful to know what the total of the approved projects, what the total cost of them are, and how they're being funded. I know someone's got CRAF, someone's got CERT, someone's got NZTA, someone's got drone.
Yeah, I actually understood the question slightly differently. I mean, for the projects that you're asking about that are only being designed to the end of their design phase, and then they may or may not go ahead depending on the LTP, those ones there have a construction estimate. So you're asking for the total construction estimate for those projects. In terms of the funding sources, we'd have to come back to you, but I believe that what you see is what you get. So that is the funding source, that is the budget, that is what we're delivering. So
if we've got, there is some that's got subsidy, and that would go back into the pot, but it's only about $1 million.
It's tiny amounts. I mean, we're getting down
that's
to
fine. I think you've picked up the sentiment. Do you want to just have a think about it after the meeting and come back? Okay, so we're good? Great.
Through the chair, can I make one highlight, transport highlight?
Yep.
On Monday, the last section of the northern part of the Northern Line opened up, and for the feedback from one user whose mum is very mean and sends him to school every day in the frost was it was awesome, and it was lovely to be able to ride down. It was smooth and it was quick, and took a lot off his journey to Papanui High School, so he was very pleased. But it's very nice to have that open. It's been a very long time for the community, and I know it's and I know Councillor Kewen has been looking forward to it too. So it's nice to
is that, just to clarify, so is that officially open now? Because we got an email last week saying the official opening is not till July.
The official opening won't be till July. There is still a little bit of work that's being done at the Kiwi Rail crossings, but I would like to acknowledge our project manager Matt and the whole of the team here and at Kiwi Rail, who have worked really hard to make sure that pedestrians and cyclists can keep going through that space, and it's been a challenging project to work together on, but they've worked really hard to do that and keep the community passing through it.
Great.
So yeah, it's awesome.
So all those lazy kids can get on their blooming bikes now.
Especially
you, Aaron.
the one
That's
that
very
gave
helpful.
the feedback.
Okay, thank you for that.
Well done, Lynette.
Yeah.
Well done.
So Pauline's happy to move this. Tim's happy to. Oh, sorry, Tyler, you got a question?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Is Lynn here? I don't think we've got anyone here for that. Do you want to just send it to Bede? Yeah. Yeah.
It's,
or OCE, yeah.
Yeah, Bede, it's in regard to the, trying to bring it up now, page 51, I think.
Yeah, or just send it through after the meeting.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'll send it
great.
through.
Okay, so Pauline's moved this. Phil's happy to, Tim's happy to second it. Any discussion? All in favour? Against? That's carried. Great. Thank you, Richard, for that.
Right.
Appreciate it. Okay, Christchurch NZ, welcome along.
Good morning.
Morning.
Kia ora te marino, kia whakapapa punamu te moana hui e tai ki e. Kia ora koutou, thank you for having us here today. I think you all know Therese. Look, we're going to rattle through the Q3 report, conscious that you guys have got lots of briefings going on at the moment. So to start off, just as a quick refresh, you have directed us over the past couple of years to create a really clear vision and framework for the city's economic future. And in the last 18 months, we've developed and implemented the city identity, the destination management plans, and most recently, the Christchurch economic ambition. And all three of these city frameworks have informed our strategy as an organisation. And part of developing our strategy was to get really crystal clear on the logic behind our planned interventions. We have limited resources, you know that more than most, and we need to be really targeted in how and when we engage. Our intervention logic is really clear. We do not get in the way of the private sector. We do not duplicate what the private sector or other organisations are doing. We look for areas of market failure or opportunity that need a boost, and we get involved through time-bound, focused interventions that have impact. Just a reminder that as the city's economic development agency, you have tasked us to deliver sustainable economic growth for Ōtautahi Christchurch. So what does success look like? Our framework defines success as delivering improvements to Christchurch's productivity, livability and attractiveness. And I'm going to focus on each of these outcomes in turn this quarter. It is actually a slightly new way of reporting. So do let us know if you find it helpful offline. It'd be really good to just hear what you think. So let's start with productivity. So the number of people working in Christchurch's 5 highest productivity sectors rose by 2.4% in 2023, and that's equivalent to just under 10% of the local workforce. And while growth is clearly slowing nationally, we all know that, in Q3, Christchurch's GDP growth of around 0.5% remains slightly above that national average of 0.2%. Demand for labour is cooling. The unemployment rate has risen to 4.9% in Christchurch in March compared to 4.7% nationally. And the context for that is partly because of our region is continuing to attract migrants from elsewhere in New Zealand, and hence the labour force has been growing faster than the rate at which jobs are being created. So I'm going to stick with productivity and talk about one of the areas we've been working over the past quarter. So you can see the importance of success stories like this one, which is the Riverlands Foods Factory in Hornby, which opened in late March after construction began in June last year. It's already created 28 FTEs, and this number is expected to grow as the business expands. The company was founded 3 years ago by Richard Zhu, who was originally attracted to Christchurch to study at Canterbury University as an international student. And when he needed a location for a large-scale pet food business, he had really specific criteria. He needed a skilled labour force, easy access to fresh produce, and a really innovative business ecosystem. And Christchurch ticked all those boxes. And one of the quotes that Richard says is, "The city's vibrant atmosphere and emphasis on innovation provided the perfect environment for me to cultivate the skills and knowledge necessary to establish our factory, and a great reason to base Riverland here." Now, despite many pet food brands are based in the North Island, much of New Zealand's red meat industry is actually South Island based. And a pet food cannery close to the source of protein made sense environmentally. It helps to de-risk the business and ensures a fresher product. And another key reason for choosing Christchurch was the need to move really quickly in a fast-changing industry. Riverland is focused on a modern approach to pet nutrition with an emphasis on R&D. And Richard told us that the skilled workforce here and the access to talent from both UC and Lincoln were great advantages for us. The CNZ team has worked really closely with Riverland Foods around site selection, ingredient suppliers and sustainability advice to help them achieve their targets and capture significant investment and new jobs to Christchurch. I'm going to move on now to livability. I'm just going to literally give one economic kind of overview and then one story for each of the 3 areas. So we all know that house prices have retreated from the peaks of the last couple of years, especially if you're someone who bought at the peak of the market like me. That's always joy. And as you can see, in March of this year, Christchurch's house prices had fallen by just 2.7% from that peak, compared to really significant drops of just under 15% in Auckland and just under 19% in Wellington. And the net inflow of migrants that I referred to earlier into Canterbury has sustained our market. And our average house price in Q3 of $688,000 remains 32% lower than Auckland's average and 13% lower than Wellington's. And that means that we still have an affordability advantage over other key cities, and that's helped to maintain that flow of domestic migrants. In turn, that's been good for our employers, because I'm sure you remember that just a couple of years ago I was sitting here telling you that the biggest challenge facing the city's business community was the lack of available workers. Now, you've heard me talk about New Brighton a lot. That's unsurprising. Our urban development projects tend to be longer term and they take more time to come to fruition. But in New Brighton, the momentum really accelerated in Q3. So Christchurch NZ's urban development team is working alongside the community and alongside private developers in facilitating two developments, Beresford to Pakaumaro on Beresford Street and Seaview on the site of the former Central New Brighton School between Hawke and Seaview Streets. And the developments are part of Christchurch New Zealand's New Brighton Regeneration Project. And that recognises that more people, as either residents or visitors, are what's needed to bring vibrancy and buzz back to New Brighton. The Beresford Street project has been granted resource consent for all 63 homes and building consent for the 25 homes in the first phase of the development, which is about to begin construction. All the homes are designed to be future-proofed for adverse weather events and are warm, healthy and light, meeting New Zealand Green Building Council's 7 home star standards. And our intervention has been pivotal in attracting the private sector, including the latest announcement by local developer Martini Investments that the first stage of a new hospitality hub called Pierside in the New Brighton Mall will be opened by Christmas. The story of New Brighton's revitalisation is a really great partnership between council, the private sector, the community and Christchurch NZ, who coordinate through the Better Brighton working group that includes your own Councillor Donovan. And I know you had a really informative presentation on this as part of the LTP submissions earlier this month, and we were also really happy to see that the story of working together made the front page of the press the following week. To see the community get in behind this joint effort really demonstrates the value of this synergistic approach. So attractiveness. Now attractiveness includes not just the attraction of visitors, it includes the attraction of investment, businesses, students and events. And in Q3, international visitor spending in Christchurch hit a new quarterly record of 127.3 million. Monthly international arrivals at Christchurch Airport and accommodation occupancy also both hit their highest post-COVID levels during February. And as we've been noting in our monthly economic insight reports, that strong visitor spending has offset or helped to offset a drop in domestic spending and is really helping to boost the service sector performance. The visitor economy expanded in Christchurch every month of Q3 compared to just 1 month of the quarter nationally. And one of the things that drove that, of course, was major events. So it was a packed summer showcase demonstrating the vibrancy events bring to the city. We had 12 major events, drawing tens of thousands of visitors and $20 million worth of visitor spending from a quarterly investment of $1.5 million. And the photo here is from Electric Ave, which generated 30,000 visitor nights, and the World Buskers Festival drew 109,000 attendees. We've been evolving our approach to the legacies that come with many events, and I just want to highlight an especially impactful one that demonstrates the power of our different teams working together. During round 5 of the Super Sprint Motorsport New Zealand Championship, we helped to launch the world's first hydrogen-powered drift car with Christchurch company Fabrum. We hosted the White Ferns, the Black Caps fixtures, culminating in a really tense finish in the Australia versus Black Caps test match at Hagley Oval, and then, of course, we had the most exciting racing on water back again, hosting the ITM Sail Grand Prix with only 12 weeks' notice. And you know that event was not without its challenges, but I'm sure you will have seen Peter Burling's message to Christchurch NZ that we had delivered the greatest day in Sail GP history as the Blackfoils took out the final on home waters. Many of these events are done in partnership with Venues Ōtautahi and Council, and they showcase the beautiful venues that we have. And then finally, just to show you a snapshot of some of our levels of service, we have 26 levels of service, and at the end of Q3, we're on track to meet 23 of them. The remaining 3 are currently receiving some remedial action. And rather than run through them all, as you can see the details in the written report, I just wanted to highlight 6 of them. So we've attracted more than $1.75 million of central government and private sector funding. Our business events team have generated more than $40 million in estimated business event attendee spend. And they've done that by submitting 53 bids to attract business events to Christchurch with more than 21,000 delegates. More than 500 businesses have accessed support, mentors and advice through us. We've had over 4,000 downloads from our public toolkit to help businesses tell the Christchurch story. 83 trade agents and investors have been hosted in the city, and 4,500 people have actively engaged with the Christchurch NZ Economic Insights, meaning people start to understand our role as an important source of economic insights for the city and the region. That's it from me. I'm going to wrap up there and see if you've got any questions.
Thank you, Ellie and Therese. That was brilliant. I really enjoyed that, and it's really good to see what you're doing. Kelly, and then someone else at the end. Oh, Hex. Tim, and then Andre.
Yeah, fantastic. Positive report. Thank you very much. Could you talk a little about the growth of Tāwhaki since the National Aerospace Centre, since they put in the new runway, and how that's affecting the local businesses like Dawn Aerospace, Care, etc.?
So I haven't got the numbers off the top of my head and I can't remember them. Apologies. We do know, and I'm happy to follow up with them afterwards. But the key thing for Tāwhaki is getting in that sealed runway, which enables horizontal takeoff and landing as well as the vertical takeoff and landing. We are actually very close to being able to sign off a Canterbury aerospace strategy that we're working with people like Tāwhaki, Dawn, Kia, University, the airport with to develop, to try and get really clear on exactly where the advantages are for Christchurch and the broader Canterbury region in the space sector. But there's no doubt that Tāwhaki is the jewel in the crown, and having it as a national aerospace centre is really important. I heard a lovely quote the other day. I was chatting to one of my colleagues from Auckland who was talking about aerospace, and she said, "But we won't go there because Christchurch has already locked that up." Now, I don't think that's true, but I was thrilled that that was her perception. So, yeah, look, I think it's a hugely important economic attractor and retention tool for our region.
Yes, because I see that there's, 1,400 jobs forecast to come in over the next 10 years and $2.4 billion
It's really significant. The numbers are massive. The aerospace, and it's high productivity as well, which is really fantastic for the aerospace industry. So yeah, they're the numbers. I think we had them in the quarterly report, but I haven't got them at the top of my head. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's right. Thank you. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the wonderful work you're doing. It's outstanding. It really is. My question is, I've got 2 questions. First one is the CIL. Following COVID, Christchurch Airport bounced back 7%, I think, when Auckland bounced back 3%, which is great. However, percentage-wise, Queenstown bounced back 23%. I think those were your figures by CIL. My concern is, and one of the CIL staff came to the long-term plan, and a wee bit tongue-in-cheek, I've got another word for it, but we won't go there. With regards to, I've asked a couple of times what the effect could be to Christchurch if tariffs went ahead. And so with your tourist figures, is there any way we can get the information, those tourists landing here, where do they go? My assumption, and with kind of information given by others, is that they're going to the Lakes District, which is totally logical.
I think it's probably not a question for the team here.
Well, I'm just wondering,
do you
know where they're going?
Tim, I'm saying it's not a question.
Okay.
So if you've got a different question, that's...
No.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Well, Lauren will follow up with you separately too.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, Andre, and then I've got Aaron.
Thank you. Just comparing different events, how much visitor spend they generate. I'm looking at Foo Fighters, 3 million visitor spend, Bread and Circus, 590,000 visitor spend, but it works out on the people attended, $5 per person for the Buskers Festival, about $150 per person, Foo Fighters. Are you able to talk about how they're measured?
Yeah.
How you're measuring it's going to cost people a bit more when they are going into town for the buskers. And
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to
Certainly
remind you
advisors.
that the way we assess the major events that we want to bring to the city, and we do this using our major events strategy that you guys have signed off, and we work through our city partners group, which is the events ecosystem group. It's not just the visitor nights that we're assessing it on. The visitor nights is one of the three legs of the stool. So we're absolutely looking what the pure economic impact is of getting people to stay longer. But we're also looking at the leverage and legacy that we can leave. You take an example like the lights at Hagley Oval wouldn't have happened had we not had the Women's World Cup as a driver to have it there, or there are other things where we can get that leverage and legacy. And then the third leg of the stool is the branding positioning. So those three all have a role to play. It's not just the lights. But do you want to talk, Lauren, a little bit about how we measure it? We use a very standard methodology called Fresh Info.
Like, when I see the Buskers Festival visitor spend, is that purely people from outside of Christchurch?
Yeah, so buskers is typically a lower visitor spend because it doesn't drive as much more visitation, and it's more one of those city identity and brand positioning events.
Yep.
And the catalyst for people coming into the city tends not to be buskers. It's something that they incidentally do, whereas something like Foo Fighters or Electric Ave drives pure visitation for just that event. Also, the demographic profile of attendees, buskers tend to be families, and they're spending less, whereas someone like a Foo Fighters attendee is coming in with a higher discretionary spend. And to Ali's point, that's where we look at a variety of factors when we create a full portfolio.
So you're still capturing average spends on what locals will be spending?
Absolutely, yeah. So I can give you quite a detailed breakdown. Yeah, sort of it's like a local will spend $6 as an example, then a regional attendee will spend, say, $12 per $1 that a local spends, and we go out. So an international visitor is the highest spending.
Cool. And just secondly, I'm wondering if you have any idea at this point in time what economic benefit a South Island NRL team bid would bring annually. I read in the paper the other day, it's in the tens of millions, which actually seems possibly conservative in a way.
We have been asked to look at that. So the team are working with both the NRL bids around what the possible economic impact will be. I can't give you a number at the moment. It depends on a few things: how many home, how many away matches, what kind of investment in that they do in terms of their team, and so there's a few things that the team are looking at. We've committed to supporting both bids with the same information so that we're not disadvantaging either of them. So once we put that package together, we'll also provide it to you guys.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Aaron, I think you got a question online.
Yeah, so I actually got three quick questions. The Electric Avenue, the numbers, it says 30,000 visitor nights from that, but only 35,000 people go to it, and I realise that some are here for more than one night. But how do we get to that number?
So that's how many nights they stay as opposed to how many people came into the city? Yeah. So it's in Electric Ave, off the top of my head, is 60% visitation, so really high visitor numbers. And then they stay on average 2 nights when they come in because, of course, they're not leaving afterwards and they come in the day before. So it's a long length of stay.
Right, okay.
Does that explain?
And yeah, it does. It does. If that's those numbers are bang on, then that's correct. Now the next one is our visitor spend only seems to go back to pre-COVID. Do we record from back as far as pre-quake? And I realise that inflation's been at least 50% since pre-quake times, but what is the visitor spend pre-quake versus now? Like, are we ahead of the game?
Yeah, so
still behind where we were in 2010.
We do record spend pre-quake, but it's not as much of an indicator as market share. So how much of the share of visitors are we getting compared to our competitors? And Tim, to the point you made earlier, we're actually capturing market share off Queenstown. So our length of stay has extended from 1.8 to 2.3 nights, and that night that we've captured is coming directly from Queenstown. So Queenstown length of stay has reduced, their visitor spend has reduced, and their market share has reduced, and we know that those itineraries are now adding an extra night in Christchurch. we're well ahead of pre-quake spend, but we're not ahead of pre-quake market share, and that's because the share of the visitor economy in New Zealand has grown so significantly since 2010.
Okay, can we get maybe in next month's numbers, if we can get a bit of an oversight of how we're looking against the rest of the country from where we were to where we're going, would be really good, because even, you know, negative or positive, certainly the positive ones always makes local people feel better. And then the other one is the visitor centre. Do we have an update on what's happening there?
So, no. Other than what we sent you last week, I think is probably the best way to say it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll just wait on that and see what happens. Thank you.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks, Aaron. Phil?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Question, when is Milton Street going to have a peg in the ground?
Kath,
Please,
do you want to come and
please.
talk about that? Thanks.
So we're making good progress in terms of completely clearing the site at Milton Street. We have gone through an expression of interest process and a request for development process. We had shortlisted down to 3, and we expect to enter into a contract in coming weeks. It's just going through a board approval process at the moment.
So does that mean whoever the winner is, and I certainly don't need to know, do they then have to go for a building consent and all that sort of thing? So
They'll need to go through a consent
Okay, so it
stage.
could be-
There has been quite a lot of due diligence done already on the site. So all the invasive testing and a lot of work that would support a consent application. So a lot of that has already been done to assist with the consenting process.
And I'll get this. Is it Niwa who got the other?
Yes,
Are they looking to do? I'm just looking to see something coming out of the ground somewhere. When are they thinking of doing something?
So at this point in time, they have cleared the site and
Yep.
they're getting it ready, and they need to put up their fences, and they're looking to get on site this year, but we're waiting for them to confirm that in terms of central government funding for that next stage.
Okay, and is there a plan of what they're building?
Yep. I can
You
share
probably
that with
sent
you.
it to me, but I haven't seen it.
We'll send it again.
Yeah, I can send you some
Okay.
information on that.
Beresford Street, I see there that stage 1 is all sold. Is that what I've
Yes, it's all
understand?
sold and it's underway on site now, which is really good. It's making good progress. And so the idea is to work on that first stage and then move into the other stages.
But when they go next time, will they go towards the sea or away from the sea with the next stage? Do you know?
They haven't confirmed yet.
Okay. And Riverlands, and this was that a new building or an existing building that they moved into?
New building.
Okay. And we just facilitated where they went, or did
We did connections to advice on sustainability, where they could do. Yeah, we did a variety of different pieces of advice. So it's quite complex. One of these, and we've talked about this a little bit, one of the challenges with economic development part of what we do, the IBG bit, the Martin Cudd part of the organisation, is that it's quite a subtle art. So a lot of it is a connection here and a suggestion here, but it's kind of it's a lot of work behind the scenes to make those things happen. So I can get you more detailed.
Oh no, that doesn't matter. So you facilitate.
We facilitate. We don't do the building.
We don't own.
No.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
This is cruise ship questions, actually. Sorry.
Musical chairs.
Thanks for the work that you guys have done over the summer, for Littleton in particular, but for Biggs Peninsula. Just in terms of the average spend of cruise ship passengers in Christchurch, do we have a sense of the types of, can we correlate spend to like types of ship and that kind of stuff? Do we have a view on that?
Yeah,
This is
so
a multi-layered question, but go for it.
Well, the preliminary data that you guys have been given is sort of the top line results. The full report is due at the end of June, and that will include market segmentation. So a 900-person ship, what their average spend is compared to, say, an Ovation of the Sea with 4,000 passengers, where they come from, are they US, are they Australia? And I think when we look at visitor spend at the moment, Australia and America are dauntingly good, and a lot of that's to do with cruise, and a lot of it is to do with direct airline connectivity, and so we're trying to strip that apart as well through surveys.
Right. Actually, that's an interesting point. Can we differentiate the spend between crew and cruise ship passenger? Probably not. That would be harder, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's a lot harder. Yeah.
Yeah, but location you can probably do
yeah, we
quite
can
well.
geolocate spend.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And just again, like the $135 a day, that's a passenger who leaves the ship. So so it's not the average of all the 250,000.
No, that's a free independent traveller. Yeah.
But yeah, so do we know how many got off the ship?
Yeah, we do. So again, that will be in the report. It's about a third.
Yeah.
So a third go on a pre-booked tour, which is generally higher spend. Then a third are a free independent traveller, and they're the $135 a day. And then a third stay on the ship as an approximation.
Right, and we'll get the pre-book spend numbers as well, right? Like
Yeah.
Which is, obviously flows into the local economy, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And it's going to cover Akaroa cruise ships as well?
Yeah, a little bit. It does some small comparative analysis against Akaroa. I guess what you can see is that the average spend in Akaroa was a lot lower because obviously there were less retail opportunities to spend money. And so by diverting them into central Christchurch, we've been able to expand the economic impact of a passenger.
Thank you. And actually, sorry, just one last final question. Thanks, sorry, Sam. We can get a sense of where people are going, like, even the independent ones.
Yeah, so we've got what their standard itineraries look like, what attractions are they doing. Actually, what we're getting back is most of them want to do retail spend. They want to go shopping. So, yeah.
Okay, no, cool. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. Great to see you. I've got 3 questions. The first one is actually around the local, domestic and international spend, and I'd like to second Andrea's request in seeing if I can get a breakdown of that. That'd be awesome to see a report on.
For events specifically, or for?
Just regional spend from all local, domestic and international.
Yeah,
Whatever you've got would be great.
I think it also aligns with Tim's question before around what itineraries people are doing, where they're spending. So we can do a bit of a deep dive in that.
Right.
It's actually sitting in the destination management plan. So it's a good opportunity for us a year on to get that baseline and see how we've grown.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That would lead me to my next question, and you'd probably know this, that we're looking at a Local Government New Zealand membership in the future. And they said that the conference actually brought in $1.1 million to our local economy. Do you have any further details on that conference itself, or do you sort of get a more broader range of spend?
Oh, we have quite a lot of details on that. We have hosted it in the past. It depends on what you want. I mean, we, as you've seen, we've done 53 bids this financial year already. So, and we haven't bid for Local Government NZ. That we've just had a conversation with them. 1.1 probably sounds about right.
I would say so too.
Yeah.
Cool. They're looking at coming biannually, which is something would be of benefit for the council to see whether that comes through. The last question is actually for Therese.
Oh.
And I'm just wanting to sort of gain sort of an insight into how you're going with the board in terms of the governance level, and your thoughts around CNZ and the way that they're going moving forward.
We're at a pivotal turning point, really, for Christchurch NZ at the governance level. Later this year, the last 3 of the originals, as we call ourselves, 3 directors who joined Christchurch NZ board from the start to shepherd the organization from startup, basically, from the amalgamation of different functions through to this point. And that includes Paul Bingham, Stephen Barclay, and myself. We will be leaving the board by the end of the year. And in your wisdom, when we went through the search for directors previously, and it was quite a rigorous 6-month search, which included public advertising, the quality of people who applied was incredibly high. And in your wisdom and in CCHL's recommendation was that we take on an extra director at that time, to actually recognizing that the chair and the deputy chair and another one of the originals would be leaving the board, to build up that knowledge around the table. And I want to thank you for that, because that has really helped the organization prepare for a significant change that's coming our way. But can I say the timing is absolutely perfect. The organization, I think, has arrived at a new maturity. When you first start up, you hope that you can get to a place where you no longer think of yourself based on the separate functions that you do, but rather the organization overall. And that's where we are. And hopefully you can see that in the reporting today. It's not about the different branches of the organization. It's about the outcomes that we've agreed that will deliver for the city. So I could not be more proud of where the organization is. And there will be significant change, but it has been managed extremely well. So thank you. And thank you for all your support.
Thanks, Therese.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work that you've done and for the excellent report. I was just wondering, we're hearing a lot of the positives, but are you measuring things like household debt, for example? Are there any sort of measures that you've got to show what's happening with inequity or inequality in our city? And so we know kind of where we're trending?
So I think I mentioned this to you last time, and I still don't have a perfect answer for you. It's really complex to measure that. I still believe that our suite of measures are not ideal. I think it is quite hard to draw a very clear line of sight between one of our interactions and something that we do. It's easier in some parts of our business. We do an event, we can work out exactly how many people come, but as in some of the economic development work, it's much harder. So we need a suite of measures to enable us to be able to check the direction of travel. I don't think we've got that quite right yet, and I think equity is an area that we need to really look into. We are, but I haven't got an answer for you yet because it is really complex. And there isn't actually an economic development agency that I can find in the country that's doing this really well. If you do see anything, we will steal with pride. But at the moment, it's a really complex area to measure. But we're on it. We recognise it's important.
Thank you. Just wondering if you could, there's not much in the report that I can, there's a performance measure around the screen stuff, but we've had a lot of submissions through the LTP. I was wondering, can you just give us a bit of an overview of the grant that we put into Screen Canterbury and what the impacts have been from your sense? Are you able just to kind of give us an overview of the impact and success of that grant?
So I'm hoping that I shared some information recently with management. I hope that's got through to you that actually had the link to the report, the Screen Canterbury review. If you haven't got that, I'm really happy to send it again. We've got a short 2 or 3 page report that just shows you the Screen Canterbury impact. Roughly, it's about 12 to 1 return. Dollar for dollar, and it's been fantastically effective. The issue we have is that how you balance that when you've got limited funding, it's what I would call incentivizing. Of course, it's incentivizing. We incentivize business events to come here. We incentivize major events to come here. We incentivize the screen industry to come here. Trying to work out how we do that is really complex when we've got limited funding. And so do I think it's effective? Absolutely. Do we have the money to continue it? Not really, because we would have to drop other things. And we're going to come and talk to you next week in a PX session about some of what genuinely are different level of scale initiatives that we're working on. We can't talk about them in public because they're so confidential. But yeah, look, it's enormously effective. And I think we've really got the flywheel turning. I think one of the key things about economic development is it takes a while to get things moving. And when you get them moving, they really start to accelerate. And if you take the pressure off, you go back to square one. And in fact, in some cases, you go back further than square one and you've then got to start again. So look, it's just about choices.
Just in the final question from me really is, this is quite a public briefing, I appreciate that, but a number of the events that are listed in terms of the spend to attract the event or to invest in the event versus the outcomes, are we going to get, I've previously asked this question around, like, for example, the World Buskers, are we going to get an understanding of the level of investment to the return?
Yes, I don't think there's a reason that we wouldn't share that, but I would like to just re-point out the fact that it's not just about the financial return. There are other elements to it, but yes, absolutely, we're comfortable sharing that.
When we're in a constrained situation as we are, and we're hearing from people around investments having a really positive return,
I hear that.
And then I look at Sale GP and I think it says it's estimated $3 million visitor spend, which seems to be about the same price as what it would cost to put the event on. So
it's not. It costs a lot less than that to put it on.
right,
So
okay,
yeah, and a lot of the figures around sales GP that are quoted in the media are not accurate.
right.
I think there's an important differentiation between visitor spend, which is how much a visitor spends and how much we get from that event,
Yeah.
compared to how much the event costs, the net GDP impact, what's spent on food,
Yeah.
provenance. That is an entirely different number. It's not one we report on. We can, and we do have it, but we entirely base it on how many visitors come in and spend, because that is pure net impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Okay. Phil's happy to move. Sarah's happy to second. Yep. Thank you very much for coming in, and
you.
that was really good. I think the level of questions would just signal how interested we are in what you do. So.
Yes, great. Thank you. Lovely to see you all. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. We'll put that to the vote. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Great. Item 11. Linda, are you? Oh, yep, you're here. So just noting there are some people that will step back for different parts of this paper. Great. Do you want to take them as read, Linda, and go to questions, or is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, look, this report is a kind of a mop-up of a few that were outstanding, outstanding as in overdue.
Yep.
And so there's very little to say on any of them. I could note that one of the ones here, Civic Financial Services, is not a CCO, and we don't get a lot of opportunity to influence what they're doing. On the Central Plains Water Trust, their draft SOI has been through the joint committee that comprises Selwyn and us, and notably the annual sustainability report has been received and will be coming to council in short course.
Great. Thank you. Quick. I feel like no. Okay. I thought you'd have a question, but okay. No, good as gold. I'm happy to. I'm not conflicted on any of these, so I'm happy to move them. Phil's happy to second them. Any questions? All in favour? Against? That's carried. Great, thank you. Thanks, Linda.
And also just to thank Linda for all the work that you're doing. I know you put in a lot of time with the Central Plains as well. Thank you. Good job.
So let's now go to the legal update, the insurance update. It's basically a legal update from Helen, Adrian, and Sophie. Yeah.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. I'll just briefly introduce this update before I hand over to Adrian Seeger to take you through a bit more detail. So just the couple of key points to inform you about today. That is, the concept design for restoration of the trickling filters is now complete. This has been a complicated process. This is a complex piece of critical infrastructure, as you know. The next step is for the preliminary and detailed design to take place. We're not yet in a position to give you a timescale for that piece of work, but when it's known, we will inform the committee, either in the next report or separately. I know this is frustrating, but we are doing everything we can to progress the restoration of the trickling filters. And just one last point before I hand over to Adrian. I am aware that there have been some reports in the media that suggest that the insurance claim is holding things up. I really want to emphasise, and I know I've said this before, that it takes time to do this work. Insurance is not holding anything up. This is a complex piece of infrastructure, and it's important that we get the restoration right. And on that, I will hand over to Adrian.
Morning, everyone. Okay, so this as Helen said, is another update on the status of the insurance claim. It includes only the information that we can share publicly at this stage without prejudicing the claim. The claim process is being overseen in some detail by the insurance subcommittee under its terms of reference. Just a reminder of what's in these reports is the status of the insurance claim and the next steps. We are not covering the immediate response, anything operational, the implementation of the findings from the independent review, or the adaptive recovery plan. However, we will be updating that plan as we get the timeframes clarified that Helen just referred to. I think it's important to remind everybody here what our insurance entitlement is, and the process we're going through is to ensure that we are getting what is properly payable to us under that policy wording. So as the report says, and up there, we're entitled to the cost of the repairs of the damage, including to comply with any laws such as health and safety, Building Act, that sort of thing, and the additional costs of working, so the costs of the temporary solution. One key thing to note, and this is why it is such a lengthy process on this size critical infrastructure, is a commercial or a corporate insurance policy is different from a residential policy that most people will be used to, where under the residential policy, your insurer will manage and undertake the work and pay the contractors or pay you a cash settlement. Under a corporate policy, we have to identify the damage, what it will take to restore it, reach agreement with that with the insurer, and then carry out the restoration, pay for it, and then get reimbursed. There's no, under the policy wording, there's no entitlement for us to a cash settlement as of right. Should we choose not to restore the damage, that then has an impact on what we will be able to claim under the policy. Hence why we are undertaking this lengthy process of identifying what is needed and the estimated costs of it. Oops, a little too far. Okay, so in terms of the restoration, as we've updated you over the last couple of quarterly meetings, we've been working through a series of workshops to develop a concept design for restoring the trickling filters. That's involved operational and planning staff from the Three Waters team, external engineering advisors and quantity surveyors, legal and finance staff, and then we've also had involved engineering advisors and loss adjusters representing the insurer, so they've been involved in this process all along. As we've been working on this concept design, we've been looking at current best practice, modern equivalents, materials and equipment, and safety standards in that repair methodology. A couple of examples here in this presentation that have been identified as best practice now compared to back in the 70s when these were initially constructed. There's fiberglass secondary supports for the filter media to sit on. They are more corrosion resistant than concrete, so over the life of the asset will not require the maintenance that a concrete structure would. And then the picture on the right is an aluminium cover rather than the previous glass reinforced plastic or fiberglass that was there, and that's because of maintenance issues over the life of it. Again, everyone who's building a trickling filter is putting an aluminium cover on it because that is the modern equivalent to what was previously done, being the fiberglass, which, as we have seen, has its disadvantages. As we've worked through this concept design, we've worked closely with the operational team, so Adam and his team of engineers and staff down at the plant, to look at any operational improvements that might be put in place as we restore. Some examples of that are improved access for maintenance, additional instrumentation and control so that they can read the performance of the filters remotely rather than someone having to go up there and take a reading. These are allowed for the Three Waters renewal budget for the treatment plant, has allowance for these in the budget, but there's not been any decisions made yet on what to include. Those items will come back to council for consideration once the detailed design is complete. Throughout the process, as I said, we've had quantity surveyors along with our engineers working on what the costs of that concept design may be. That is still in a draft and will continually be updated. A copy of that is currently with our insurer for their experts to do a review on. And as we've previously mentioned, we've been benchmarking the trickling filters across against another secondary treatment process. Again, just making sure we are getting the best outcome for the community in the long term. The next steps, as Helen mentioned, we're about to undertake the detailed design process. This is refining the concept design down to specific requirements. So a simple way of looking at it is, if you're building a new house, you have the architect's drawings and floor plans, that's your concept design. And then you get down to the stage of where are your PowerPoints going to be, where's your TV going to be, as you know, you're going to hang it on the wall, that's that level. So that's effectively what we're doing next, is going down to the specific requirements. Again, that's going to have input from the operational planning staff of Three Waters, the external engineering advisors and quantity surveyors, legal and finance, again, just keeping an eye on what is entitlement under the policy, and then the loss adjuster and the engineering advisors who are representing the insurers. So the procurement of that detailed design is underway at the moment, and a plan for procuring the contractor for restoration is also underway, so that as soon as that design is completed, we can get boots on the ground. Ahead of the detailed design, there's some further minor investigations going on that we referred to in the report. They are looking at part of the concrete structures, the drain channels, ground conditions under it, just to improve our understanding of what's there. There was a lot of geotech work done, obviously, post-earthquake, so it's really updating that to make sure that in the about 10 years now, nothing has changed significantly in what is there and our understanding of it. One thing that's not on this slide, which we have been undertaking recently, is discussing also with the comms team how best we can communicate this to the public. Obviously, we've had this is the third quarterly report of process and what's been going on. We're just talking about the best way now, how we can get this information out to the community in potentially a different format, just to make it easier for them to access than having to go into an agenda and find a report and that sort of thing. And there we go. I mean, it's pretty brief, but open to questions now.
So we'll do questions. Nia's happy to move it, and Yanni's happy to second it. By the looks of it. Yep, cool. Okay. Tim, and then Yanni.
With regards to the communication, it'd be really good for our, and they probably are anyway, our team to liaise with the local community board. That's really, I think, the key to it. Thank you.
We'll pass that on.
Yeah, because I mean, no disrespect, but to the people outside, like on the outskirts of town, but those that are immediately affected are really the important ones to get hold of. We have the same problem with cycleways and other things. So.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor.
Might also be useful to liaise with the local councillor. For example, we just put out an update on Monday that didn't reference this, even though this was public information. So, yeah, it'd be quite good just to tighten up on that if we can. I just wanted to check if... So you've talked about the next steps, and I know you've kind of said that the independent review is outside of the scope, but then the independent review kind of recommended in terms of next steps, setting up a liaison group around the future of what was going to be done. So when I look at your next steps, there's no reference to a work program to do that. Am I able to ask if that is underway or if that's been considered? Or is that completely separate to all the input that's coming in from all the other...
It might be something we need to take offline with John Filsell, I suspect. That might be a...
Yes, it's beyond what we can answer today.
Right.
So if we can take that offline and see what we can provide the committee.
Okay, but at what stage will the community or the public, but particularly the people that are most impacted by it, at what point will they have visibility of what's being proposed and what the time frame is for it being done?
So as I said earlier, we're not in a position to give timescales at this stage, and it would be potentially misleading to estimate those timescales. When we're in a position to give definite timescales, we'll provide those. That's as far as I'm afraid I can take that today, Councillor.
Right, but there must be some sort of, like, we're procuring the work for a contractor. We can't even have dates of when that procurement will
Yeah, I
occur,
think that's been asked and answered. We can't. We're not in a position to give dates at the moment. But as I've repeated at the last meeting and the one before, because the only thing we can, as soon as we can tell people, we will. Yeah, it's not like people are just sitting around waiting. It's all being lined up. Yeah, nothing's being delayed at all. Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you both. Oh, thank you to the team for that. I know how hard you're working on it. It's great. Okay, what we'll do is we might just resolve to go into PX now, because then Tina doesn't have to hang around. Yeah, so Phil's happy to move us into PX. Tim's happy to second it. All in favour? Against? That's carried. We'll come back at 11:20. Have a 15-minute break.